We all know and love the Disney and Pixar universe, but the truth is, depending on where you live in the world, those universes are completely different. From title to voice actor changes and everything in between, some of these films become almost unrecognizable when they premiere in other countries. Number 1. Different meanings. Coco might be one of Disney's #1 movies, but for some folks it reminded them a little more of number 2, if you know what we mean. Not that international audiences thought the movie was bad, but in Portuguese, Coco actually translates into the word poop. So instead of putting audiences through that, Brazil decided to change the title and Mama Coco's name to Viva instead. Number 2. Different animals. Zootopia should be in the running for the movie that paid the most attention to detail. That is, when it came to being conscious of its international viewers. The newscasters, including their voice actors, changed depending on what animal was native to that country. In the US, Canada, and France, they were a moose voiced by Canadian news anchor Peter Mansbridge. In the UK, he's still a moose, but was voiced by UK news reporter Vassos Alexander. In the version released in China, Peter Mansbridge still voices the part, but it was a panda instead of a moose. Australia and New Zealand have a koala that was voiced by their own news anchor David Campbell. In Brazil, it was a leopard, voiced by Brazilian journalist Ricardo Boechat. Finally, there was Japan's version that featured a raccoon dog and was voiced by Soka Kakariko. Number 3. American patriotism. The USA prides itself on how patriotic its citizens are, and this patriotism translates on the big screen as well. In Toy Story 2, during Buzz's speech, he has the American flag flying behind him, but for the rest of the world, his backdrop was a globe of the world instead. Number 4. Soccer versus hockey. Every country has a sport that's more popular than others, maybe even a national sport. So why shouldn't that be reflected in Disney and Pixar films as well? Inside Out thought it was pretty important. During the scene where we get a glimpse at Riley's dad's daydream in the US, Canada, and Russia, he's thinking about hockey, but in the version released to the rest of the world, he was thinking about a soccer game instead. Number 5. Broccoli versus green peppers. Staying on the Inside Out thought track, there was another difference between the original film and the one released in Japan. During a memory where Riley is a baby, we see her reject the broccoli her parents are trying to feed her. But in Japan, she's refusing to eat green peppers. The reason? Culturally, kids actually love broccoli in Japan. Number 6. Oceania. Maybe Moana isn't as G-rated as we originally thought. In Europe, Moana's title was changed because Moana is the name of a famous European adult star that people thought referencing in a Disney film was a little too much. In Italy, Moana was changed to Oceania, and in the rest of Europe, it was changed to Vaiana. Number 7. Jar labels. Up pulled on all of our heartstrings, and the creators needed to make sure those heartstrings were pulled across the globe. So, while Ellie and Carl's Paradise Falls Save Up jar literally reads Paradise Falls in the English version, in the international versions, because of the language barriers, the label was instead an adorable hand-drawn photo of Paradise Falls. Number 8. English versus art. Like Up, Monsters University creators came up with a creative way to not just have subtitles for foreign audiences, but to actually engage them. In the US version, there's a platter of cupcakes that spells out, "Be my pal," but in the international version, the cupcakes are just faces drawn on with icing. Number 9. Translations. Circling back to Up, the Paradise Falls savings jar wasn't the only thing the creators changed depending on the country. Ellie's adventure book's front cover was also translated depending on what language was native to the audience. Number 10. Accents. In Cars, the UK wanted to stand out a bit from the rest of the world and add a little more of their culture into the film. So while the character Harv in Cars has an American accent, the Harv in the UK version has a UK accent. Their lines were even slightly different to match the dialogue of both countries. US Harv says, "Come on, kid, get in the trailer," and UK Harv says, "Come on, mate, get in the trailer." Number 11. Japan's Minty. Minty Zaki brought all the sass when we met her during the Sugar Rush game, but in the Japanese version of Wreck-It Ralph, she became Minty Sakura. Not only did she have a name change, but she also looked completely different. Minty Zaki was actually named after famous Japanese animator Hayao Miyazaki, so it's a little odd that they would decide to shake things up, but there's been no official reason behind the change. Number 12. Famous racers. International versions of Cars had a little fun with the character Jeff Gorvette. Instead of having a generic voice and look for each film, the characters were based on different famous race car drivers in each country. The Spanish version was based on Fernando Alonso, and the Chinese version was named Longue and designed after the Chinese flag. Number 13. English versus Greek. Just like Randall's Cupcakes, there was another change made regarding text in Monsters University. During the scare games, there's a banner that's hanging in the background. In English-speaking countries, the banner reads Scare Games, but in international versions, it was replaced with the Greek lettering that's common in university sororities. Number 14. English and French. In Ratatouille, the letter that Remy finds was probably in English when you saw it on screen, but the original version was in French. Instead of using subtitles, because the film does take place in Paris, the creators decided to just reanimate the entire letter to be English. Number 15. Bing Bong. Before Bing Bong's untimely demise in Inside Out, there's a scene where he's reading, maybe a little too late, a keep out sign. The language of the sign was changed depending on what country you watched the film in, but Bing Bong's movements were also edited to be in time or in pace with the words depending on the country. Number 16. Representing countries. Like in Cars, Planes also had a signature character that changed depending on which country the film was premiering in. In Planes, it's not Jeff Gorvette, but it's Rochelle. For each country, she pays tribute to its colors, flag, or other characteristics the country may have. Just another tidbit Pixar added to make everyone feel at home. Number 17. Zootropolis. This Zootopia change really had no rhyme or reason behind it. In the US, Zootopia is, well, Zootopia. But in the UK, Zootopia was released as Zootropolis. A spokesperson for Disney admitted they felt that the UK should have a unique title that would work for audiences. This change ended up extending further than the UK. For instance, Zootropolis is also the name in Canada. Number 18. She was revoiced. Shrek is hilarious, and creators would most likely do anything to get an extra laugh from audiences.
Hey, how's it going?
That's why Ugly Sister 2 in Shrek 2 was revoiced. In the most common version, she was voiced by Larry King, but in the UK, she was voiced by UK comedian Jonathan Ross to make it more relevant to a UK audience. Number 19. She was also revoiced. The ugly stepsister, also known as Doris, wasn't the only character to be revoiced for the UK version. While this is a small role, it was still also done to make the film more relatable to people from the UK. The red carpet reporter in Shrek 2 was originally voiced by Joan Rivers, but in the UK, her voice actor was UK television presenter Kate Thornton. Number 20. They're different in Poland. As you probably know, sometimes it's a little difficult to tell a story that would translate across all cultures, and the Shrek creators ran into this issue when making the film. Shrek is based on a few well-known fairy tales. Well, as it turns out, these fairy tales aren't actually that well known in Poland, so they needed to make some changes for that country. For instance, when Shrek threatens to kick Donkey's butt in the American version, the Polish version actually has Shrek threatening to take him to the slaughterhouse. In hindsight, it may seem harsh, but would make a lot of sense to Polish viewers. Well, that's all, folks. Can you think of any other changes that were made between countries in animated films? Let us know in the comments section below. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.